Welcome to episode 12 of the Austin Real Estate Today podcast and radio show. Welcome, Perry, my co-host. It's October 1st. We're in the fourth quarter now of the year. Can you believe we made it through such a hot summer and the market, I don't think it's really slowing down still. You?
I don't think it is either. How was your weekend this weekend?
Well, I had a busy weekend. I had a relocation client out, and we looked at 10 or 12 houses and found one they liked. What was interesting is they provided me with, based on the website I use and some of the other work I was doing with them, 16 houses to look at. And of the 16 houses they were interested in, 5 of them were already in contract.
Wow.
So what it did to them was it gave them a sense of urgency. They knew they wanted to buy a house this weekend anyways, but what you're seeing is a renewed sense of urgency with real buyers. And for sellers this time of year, if you have a serious buyer, there is a window here, because what we do know is the market does slow down after Thanksgiving. So there is a short window here that inventory is starting to drop. They don't have a lot of choices. In other words, once we got through this short list of houses, there weren't 25 more to go look at.
Mm-hmm.
So how about you? How was your weekend?
I executive reload myself. This particular one, I run into this a lot. Hey, Perry, I've got a house I've got to sell in another city, in this case Dallas, before I can buy a place here. That one-bedroom, fully furnished property is very difficult to rent for 1 to 3 months right now. It's very
I
interesting.
could absolutely imagine.
So
not a lot for rent. They didn't even consider renting, this family I was working with, because when they looked, there was just nothing for rent. And what was for rent, they weren't that interested in. It's cheaper for them to buy.
Yeah, I'm running into that too. God, isn't that crazy? 1 year.
It is interesting. So I'm going to jump down into the news and we can get started here. Some fun stuff. Forbes put out a list of what they call their hip and hipster neighborhoods. And they do it based on a number of different criteria. And what's interesting is the Near East Austin area there that you're real familiar with, by Rainey Street and what have you, based on a number of factors, was number 7 on the list. Walkability, number of coffee shops per capita,
right?
Food trucks, which is something that Austin set the national direction on. They're actually showing up in different markets now around the country.
Right.
And then locally owned bars and eateries. So you and I both know this is a big thing over there, isn't it?
Totally. You're kind of a hipster yourself there, Kevin.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is I remember when I first moved to Austin, lots changed. You didn't see a lot of food trucks. You didn't see these little food courts. And if you were in the Near East Side, there were a couple of taquerias you could eat at. And there wasn't much else out there. I'm sure you remember it wasn't too long ago that really things started to change.
Right. Well, that Rainey Street district is full of those little trucks, and right across the street into the East Austin area, you have all that near waterfront property that, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that on one side of the 35, it's $400 a foot. On the other side of 35, it's $225. I expect a lot of great things happening over there.
Got it. Yeah, I do the same thing. You're talking about that corridor that goes along the lake there that's sort of underutilized at this point.
Starting at I-35, the other side is building the continuation of the hike and bike trail. I forgot how much they're putting into that, but it's in the millions of dollars.
Yeah, it's a big project. I've seen the renderings and the drawings. It's going to be, once that's connected as a complete loop down on that end, you can get all the way through. It's going to make a huge difference, I think, for the area and renewed interest. It's like anything else. You talk about real estate being location, location, location. That east side is definitely something that I think you'll see over the next 5 to 10 years really start to take off because it's got the proximity, but it's never had that much attention. It has a little bit of attention. Certainly, the reason it ended up on this list is you've got that gentrification and that sort of hip near east side that has already had a fair amount of attention, but I think you'll see it spreading, like you said, along the lake and other areas over there, don't you?
I do.
Well, our next article deals with that Austin South Lamar Plaza area. Obviously the Alamo Drafthouse has a fairly small location, and they're talking about expanding it and adding additional screens And in my mind, the reason this is interesting in news is we just see story after story coming out about this area and this corridor, don't we? Renewed interest, redevelopment, shopping centers being done, and project after project, more investment and money being spent in that area. I know you work this area quite a bit, so you don't see this slowing down, do you?
I don't. In fact, you have the new Post Lamar over there. You have another project that's going across the street from the Alamo Drafthouse. It's pretty much under the first floor slab, building up the second floor stage right now. But that's basically 800 new units in walking distance to this fabulous location. I wonder if they're going to, how the community's going to be affected because of all the little shops that are in there right now. I mean, you have the Draft House, you have a couple of restaurants, you have Susie's Kitchen, a couple trailers over there too,
right,
that are really just neat, fun spots.
Well, yeah, and I think what will happen is you're going to get a mix of what I call the big capital investors that will come in and do wholesale redevelopment of shopping centers, and that will be combined with more of the what I call Austin-specific food trailers, food courts, sort of trendy little restaurants and shops. And they always seem to do a good job of mixing the two of them together. It's not like it's all one or the other. And you're certainly not going to see any big power centers put in. The powers that be are not looking for anything like that, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I like the fact that Austin is committed to those walkable areas. And you see that all across the area, even going out to the suburbs now. You're starting to see the really investing into community walking area zones, trying to get people on that trail just to get to the little shopping area. Even Circle C, they have seems like all trails lead to that shopping center and the Starbucks over there too.
Right. Well, and it's definitely something that what you're seeing is you're seeing a trend to have communities be more self-contained that don't require a visit to another location with a car if at all possible. That's a big trend. I mean, you can't help but drive around in the downtown area and even central Austin and the corridor and see more and more people looking at alternatives based on transportation. Whether it's riding bikes, whether it's various and sundry other methods of looking at getting to work, including public transportation. And I think that's why you see so much interest in this South Lamar Plaza and the Alamo Drafthouse.
What have we got next?
We've got pending home sales slip in August. Mortgage rates hit new lows. Well, we talked about this on the last couple podcasts. The only thing that I think is going to give any kind of pause, and you got to remember, these make headlines in the news, but there's always seasonality. In other words, it's not always a march every month to higher numbers. So if August is lower than July, it doesn't necessarily mean the market has significantly slowed. There is always, if you look at the months of September and October, they're not as busy as earlier in the year. Usually in a lot of markets, they'll peak around May and June. Just depends on a number of other factors. And so what we saw this summer is ridiculously low mortgage rates. They've continued their decline. And this is the first sort of pause in the market. It's a 2.6% decline in August versus July nationally. Remember, real estate's local. And what's interesting is we've got the Federal Reserve with their quantitative easing dumping in, basically up to $70 billion. That's 70 billion, which is an awful lot of millions. And they're dumping a lot of money in, and the effect it's having is you're seeing rates pushed to an all-time low. I mean, you've got 3.4%. I'm sure in your lifetime and in your career in real estate, you probably never thought you'd see a 3% 30-year mortgage, did you?
My first was 7.25.
Yeah. I mean, I had plenty of mortgages in the sevens. And this is 3.4% based on Freddie Mac 30-year. A 15-year is under 3.
Wow.
So it's interesting. They're going to do this until they effectively get unemployment under 7%. They're targeting all the way into 2014. So this may have a pretty big effect on refinancing. That's what their expectation is, which they believe will free up additional spendable income for either consumption, buying durable goods, buying more houses, and also savings if that's what the family is oriented to. And it's interesting to see what I think the effects are of this 37 days until the election. we're going to be upon that fairly quickly. You and I will only get through about 5 more podcasts before we do one on the day before the election. And what's interesting is that this may have a little bit of pause in the market if people are concerned about the uncertainty. If it becomes really, really clear here in the next couple of weeks of who they think might be the president, and I'm not going to even guess what will be because it's too much of a wild card in terms of what's going on, regardless of what people see in polls, that could either speed up and put things back on track or cause the market, in my mind, to sort of take a breather for a little while people sort of wait and see what's going on. The backdrop in Austin always has that consistent relocation. I mentioned at the top of the call that I had a relocation client in from out of town. They're coming no matter what. It's the people who are buying and moving up, down, sideways within Austin that are more susceptible to taking a breather and deciding whether they want to do something now or in the spring. Don't you agree?
I think so. I think that's part of the natural flow of this business, too. I think the next big weekend would be Thanksgiving weekend, and when I see that last huge spike of the year, and everybody wants to be in before Christmas, too. Just enjoy their new home during Christmas.
Right. Well, what's interesting is the way we structured the contract on this weekend was we're going to close the first week in November, and we're going to lease the house back to the seller till after Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Get it in, let the seller, because it has the flexibility to be able to do that. This client's moving in, and they would prefer to move in for the Christmas holiday, if you will, instead of worry about trying to get it done right before Thanksgiving. And, that was actually more palatable to the seller because you'll see a couple of weeks from now, you start getting into that period where sellers are like, oh, God, I don't want to close the day before Thanksgiving. But, granted they have to if they've got a buyer that needs to move in that time frame. So this is why we get into this period in the fall where we do see some aberrations in the demand. But really what starts to happen is supply drops quickly. It already has. And you'll see in another week or so when we pull the numbers again in the MLS that I expect, although we saw last time that, right around the 10th of September when we look at the numbers, we had about 6,400 active listings. I wouldn't be surprised if we're well under 6,000 as active listings, just based on what I see going on the market every day. The numbers have definitely dropped down. And the last bullet you see on this pending number here is qualifying is still a significant issue for the demand side. It is still an issue for a large number of buyers that no matter what they do with interest rates, and no matter how much cheaper it is to purchase than it is to rent, and that is the case in a lot of markets within the Austin marketplace, it still requires some modicum of credit, down payment, and job security in order to purchase, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. I keep thinking back to the guest speaker we had maybe two weekends ago, and he kept saying that he has over $20 million in construction loans right now on real estate, and he couldn't qualify for one of the houses we already own.
Yeah, it has to do with the financing market is. I remember people used to show up in Austin, had great credit. Hey, they might have showed up on a bus, but they were going to go buy a house. Right. And the lenders were lined up to do it. And they had multiple choices.